This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 352 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about why Borussia Dortmund lost to Union Berlin, and on a completely unrelated note, why corner kicks should be abolished. And we will preview Tuesday's DFB Pokal second round game against second Bundesliga side Eintracht Braunschweig. For all that and more, joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing? What's going on?
Well, at least the sun is shining. So, there's that. It was not the greatest of sporting weekends in my house, so
how did the Cowboys
may as well talk about it again.
How did
they actually won, probably because
really?
They weren't on TV, but Notre Dame lost to Clemson and Spurs and Broncos. It's just, yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about some good stuff. How are you doing?
I'm just in a splendid mood because I just looked at the way Dortmund conceded the corner goals again just now, and it's downright hilarious, even though I'm not entirely sure how to dive into this segment other than that Dortmund obviously lost 2-1 to Union Berlin. It means that Borussia Dortmund is the first club that Union Berlin beats in consecutive home games. So congrats to the somewhat still newly promoted team, I guess, in their second season. They are, I think, now 1 point behind Dortmund, and Dortmund now will celebrate Christmas on a Europa League spot. Isn't that something, Matthias?
Hey, I've never won that competition, okay? Just trying to add another one to the trophy cabinet.
Yeah, but you can also just finish third in the group phase.
One should always remain optimistic. You can finish second as well.
I mean, it's, I would say, a very typical Dortmund performance in just so many ways. Terzic didn't make too many changes from the 2-1 win against Bremen. Meunier, I think, replaced Moret on the right side, and then John replaced Bellingham. Matthias, did you expect more rotation, or do you think it was just limited due to all the injuries that Dortmund have? Like, for example, Torgan Hazard, who I thought would, for example, start, was not available due to some muscular injury.
Yeah, I mean, it just has to be that, because I remember during the game, I was, looking at the lineup. I'm like, okay, who could one bring in now? And I was looking at it and going, well, shit, I don't know. I mean, Dahoud, who obviously could, I think he's just cursed. He must have done something to somebody at some point, and he's forever cursed. But other than that, I think it's just a limitation of who's available and who the coaching staff believes that they can trust in difficult matches and circumstances, which obviously says a lot about some of the players that are available that didn't start. Julian Brandt, I'm looking right at you. And Dahoud to a degree as well. So there are those question marks. But I think he's just limited with his options.
Yeah, it feels like it, and I think we'll talk about the substitutions in a little while. But Matthias, I have to say, reverting to the 4-2-3-1 and the way Dortmund are playing this, I almost hate myself for saying this, but it feels a little bit like Stögerball at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it does, maybe with a little bit more forward-thinking impetus, but that may be simply down to the players at one's disposal versus necessarily the coaching decisions. I'm not going to go as far as Mehmet Scholl, who was extraordinarily, honestly, cruel towards Edin Terzic and saying there's just not a lot there, which is an awfully extreme prick thing to say, given that, as Terzic says, Mehmet Scholl doesn't really know me. Just like I don't really know him, even though Terzic probably knows him better than Mehmet Scholl deems it worthy to know Edin Terzic. But obviously there may be certain limitations there. It does feel a lot like it did a few years ago. When you look at where Dortmund sit in the table, when you look at certain discussions and issues, the one big difference obviously is Schalke are not overperforming this season, unlike at that time. So
yeah, if we feel like we could do a little Schalke segment later on.
May as well. You need to bring some levity to this, right?
Yes.
I think there's just certain limitations and certain things that, let's be honest, there's not a lot of time. And unlike when Stöger came in for Bosch, they did a swap at a point in time where there was a winter break. They don't have that now. So there's not really much there. And Terzic even said it in the press conference today, I believe it was. He said that today's training was the first with the entire team. I mean, just think about that. So how much can you expect from a new head coach who is 38 years old when he doesn't have the whole team to work with when they're playing every 2 to 3 days? I mean, it's just to expect more from a young, inexperienced coach is a little bit asinine, which does lead me to Mehmet Scholl when we speak of asinine. But I think it needs to go beyond the coach there, and obviously the players need to come. So it's just, the timing's tough. He did say it'll be nice now that we have this mini break of like a week, that the players can go home over Christmas, except, obviously Bellingham and Sancho, because, they can go home. They just can't come back. To just chill for a few days, clear your head, and then come back and work at everything. And he said that's not the case for the coaches. The coaches are out there working, analyzing. They already did it after Bremen. They practiced on Saturday, but then the players had the day off on Sunday, but the coaches came in and worked. So those are all things I like to hear. The one thing I love about Terzic, he's way more open than most of his predecessors were. And part of that's probably youthful naivete. But it's nice to hear because you can sit there and he shares his thoughts. Why did we do this? Why did we not do that? What was the thought behind this? Where were the issues in the goals conceded that you so masochistically decided to watch again? And I do. So I like him. I like the guy. I just think it's just tough. It's a tough situation right now.
No, it is terribly tough. Especially because, like he said at the very first press conference, it's not like Dortmund really collapsed where you could already see it coming from like 8 miles ago. I really do think that it has to do, obviously, with the absence of Erling Haaland and his presence on the football pitch. And without him, Dortmund are obviously different. But also just the amount of games, the fatigue. I've talked about this a million times already, but I honestly believe that with the Cologne game starting a little bit after that international break, that things got tough for Dortmund. I mean, they had to play against Hertha, then Lazio, and all these games, they make you very tired, especially when you are sort of summer preseason isn't long, and the previous season was also kind of weird, and now you don't have a winter break. It's going to be tough, and I think it's going to get a little tougher. And so with the lack of rotation, it's also not going to be very easy to play against this Union Berlin, who obviously managed to get a draw against Bayern Munich and then a draw against VfB Stuttgart, and they are kind of on a roll now. And it was also very interesting to see how they lined up, because it was sort of a 4-1-4-1. I mean, I expected Taiwo Awoniyi up front because he is in the absence of Kruse and I think his name is Andersen, right? Or is that the guy who went to Cologne? I'm confused for a minute.
Yeah, Andersen left.
So anywho, but he right now is sort of their lead striker. But what I found very interesting is that they had a double eight with Sebastian Griesbeck and then freaking Cedric Teuchert. And I'm already annoyed by saying this because he is obviously a product of the Knappenschmiede, meaning he is a striker usually. Coming from Gelsenkirchen, obviously that he has been sort of implemented as a number 8, sort of more of a midfield enforcer really, and to do what strikers do in their sort of defensive duties just for 90 minutes more or less. That's just super annoying that this sort of thing works out. Like on a personal level, that this Schalke guy is being played there, and then I think ahead of the 2-1, he was the guy who sort of regained the second ball that loose Akanji header into midfield, where Teuchert was just standing in the center circle and no obviously Dortmund shirt around him because Julian Brandt was, I don't know, playing tiddlywinks, and then the ball I think came from Avonivo to Becker or wasn't Becker, it was the substitute. What's his name? Ryerson, and he just went to the corner flag and looked at Gio Reyna and just pinked the ball against him and then won the corner, which led to the 2-1. Just thinking about the play that led to this winning goal from Union Berlin, I'm just very annoyed because it's also very simple. It starts with a punt from Lute and then, one header into Nirvana, and Union. It just felt like at this moment Union didn't even have to try that hard to create a goal against Dortmund, and that just annoys me to no end. That you feel like in the final 15 to 16 minutes of the game, Dortmund were never going to really mount another phase of pressure, but it just sort of feels like a scrappy second Bundesliga game and not. Union Berlin against Borussia Dortmund, where Dortmund should, in theory, be the side with more gas in the tank and, push the opposition back into the box and then mount some power players. So no, it's the sort of exact opposite, where there's a bit more scrappy long balls played back and forth, and then Union Berlin are just better on the field in their positioning for those loose balls, and so I don't know. I didn't really want to go on a long tirade here, but Matthias, I think maybe we should talk a little bit about the tactical setup from Union Berlin, because what they did so nicely with the aforementioned Teuchert and Griesbeck, and then of course with Prömel as a number 6, is they outnumbered Dortmund's midfield a little bit, and they either had a sort of a man-marking scheme with Witzel and Schan, but I thought that their number 8s were actually a little bit in front of Witzel and Schan at some moments, and sort of cut off the pass to Dortmund's central midfield and cut that one off. So I thought that was a nice tactical ploy, but overall you could see that whenever a Dortmund player received the ball, say a central midfielder or one of Dortmund's attacking midfielders or strikers, you could always immediately see one Union player making a run right to greet them when the Dortmund player was to gain the ball, and that made it really tricky.
No, I agree. I mean, I already commented this before all the goals flew in against Stuttgart, that Stuttgart did a really good job and Augsburg did this already. Köln did this a little bit less so. And obviously Union Berlin did it very well. And it's something that I always admire from Atletico, is that they not just man-orient mark at times, but they cut out the options of the pass. They control the half space incredibly well, and then do an extremely aggressive press after. I wouldn't, it's not deep in their own third, but let's say high in their own third. And that's so incredibly effective in frustrating the opponent, especially when you're dealing with an opponent that is very pass oriented. Obviously that's something that Atletico has done for years in La Liga. That's something that Union Berlin did really well overall last season. Sometimes it didn't work, but oftentimes it did. And then you combine that with being very good on the counterattack, which, granted, Union Berlin were incredibly wasteful, whereas Stuttgart were incredibly clinical. And, you know, you kind of force mistakes. And then there are other things, obviously, Dortmund created as well, that led to their own demise in some of these matches. But there is a certain MO. If you look at the matches, most of the matches Dortmund lost this season, taking Bayern out of it, Augsburg, Union Berlin, VfB Stuttgart, 1. FC Köln, those 4 losses were lost in eerily similar ways. I'm going to take Köln out of it a little bit because they were a little bit more passive, and Dortmund were a little bit more unlucky in that match when it came to their own possession and finishing, because they did create chances. But if we just look at Augsburg, Stuttgart, and Union Berlin, who all played pretty much the same way and scored goals in pretty much the same way. Set pieces were key, counterattacks were key, pressing aggressively in their own third was key, and shutting down the half-space passing options was key. It's the same thing, and Dortmund had crazy high amounts of possession in all of those matches.
Yeah, 70% against Union.
Exactly, and that's where Tobias Escher once again was like, hey, remember my stat I keep on telling you about? When Dortmund has like 68, 75% possession, they lose. And there's something to be said for that. You know, I mean, Mourinho won a crap ton of titles playing that way, though granted, not the last few matches. But anyway, that's a different painful story. But it's similar, and that's where it's frustrating that they don't seem to understand how to deal with the same opponent 3 times. 3 times. And honestly, 4 times, because Lazio played the same way. The exact same way in that first Champions League match. And they couldn't get it done. And so the question is, why? Some of those matches Holland was there, and quite a few he wasn't. So obviously, he's a game changer. We already talked about that. But there's more to it.
Well, can I read you a Terzic quote from the post-match news conference? He said, "We were often playing against the, quote, standing formation, which means we have to move our opponents better by moving the ball faster. But in order to move the ball faster, we have to move better." Translation, our positional play is ass. Yes. And that's what we bemoaned about Dortmund at the beginning of last season, remember? I mean, Lars was going on and on about the Dortmund's positional play in attack is shit. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're right. This is the problem. Like, Dortmund in this game actually managed to bypass Union Berlin from time to time in the way that they actually had when they overloaded the half spaces with Sancho and Reina, when they moved more onto the inside. You had touches in the half spaces. You had the ball in the zone where you sort of wanted, but then there's no fucking run to be found or anything that will create an opportunity for the through ball for the final ball. So this is sort of my main gripe right now. And arguably we're, complaining on a very high level because obviously that is the high art of football, sort of getting the ball from the final third into the zone where it hurts. And obviously Dortmund did that a couple of times by finding Moukoko.
Who just needs to grow. Just grow a little bit more, Yusufa. You're too short.
But overall, I think Dortmund are not doing this forcefully enough and not good enough. And when we talk about the man marking thing, that sort of made me almost chuckle because you are sort of playing against the quote unquote standing formation. I know it's not the best translation, but stehende Formation is also not that easily to translate.
You're playing against a block.
Yes, but
a low block.
Sort of, but I feel like the word standing here only comes from the fact that when you man mark, and you mark your man and he's standing, you're also not moving. So this is sort of the big problem is like the staleness. The 3 fucking day-old toast that's been laying around in our kitchen, which obviously it hasn't, but for this metaphor it has, is still more fluid than Dortmund's attack. And this is something that really needs to change dramatically. And I think this can be solved by more players, because I think you need to rotate more, but also by a couple clearer patterns and schemes in the final third, which need to be trained and cannot because there's no time. So it's a catch-22 right now for Dortmund, because their attacking sequences, and I like to talk about automatism all day on this podcast, but honestly, they're not good enough. There are too many misunderstandings. There's a ball into space by Hummels, and Sancho's just standing there, or you see a back heel by Moukoko, and then there's just Sancho standing there. Sorry, two bad examples, but same with Gio Reyna. He sometimes doesn't make the runs he needs to make, and it's just very frustrating. And obviously, Dortmund then take too many touches and recycle possession, etc., and fall into the good old Favre patterns where then you just take forever. I mean, if we take a look at the goal that Dortmund scored, it was actually sort of a transitional moment, if you will, because Dortmund had a corner and obviously Union cleared it. Then it was Avonie who ran away with it, but he had a heavy touch and sort of got intercepted by Reyna, and he passed it to Can, who immediately laid it off with one touch. Very important, to Guerreiro, and Guerreiro took one look, stopped the ball, and then passed it sort of into the left channel. He passed it sort of to the left side of Friedrich from Dortmund's perspective, and Moukoko obviously made the run. And I will say this, the way Moukoko just had the eyes on the ball, didn't even look where the goal was or the goalkeeper, and just pounced on it. It was very Haaland-esque, the finish.
Yes, 100%.
And I gotta say, if there's a way to score your first goal, that's one way to do it, I must say. And obviously at 16 years and 28 days, even more amazing that it's a record. I just really feel bad for Moukoko, because ever since he sort of participated minus the Hertha game, shit really hit the fan. Kind of feel bad for the kid, but yeah. It was a great striker's goal, and as you said before, it's kind of tragic that in a few situations he was just too short, trying to slide into the ball, because the sort of Gio Reyna's pass was more calibrated to a Haaland than the Moukoko, and I think he hit the post once, but that was sort of positive, but
his joy.
Yeah.
His joy when he scored that goal.
He didn't even know
he
didn't
know what to do.
Yeah.
He didn't know what to do. It was, and that's why we love the sport. It was great to see. It was great to see. I mean, I smiled with the kid. It was awesome. However, enough positivity. Because we've been just rays of frickin' sunshine so far. But there are a few things that see, this is probably one of the most prepared podcasts from both of our sides we've come into it. There are a few little notes that I made during the match and a lot of it is, why can't you learn from history? I mean, I have a degree in history. I believe everybody should study history because it would explain some of our dumbass societal decisions we've made in the last 4 years. But the same dumbass decisions are being replicated at Dortmund, because I remember distinctly the time when Marco Reus would play in the number 10, and all of us said, he's not a 10. Put him on the left wing, he can cut in, he can move into the half space, and he's better at moving out of cover shadows. So forward to 2020, and Marco Reus is playing on the fucking 10.
Because he's too fucking slow for any other position.
No, he's not. I don't care. He's not that slow. Here's the thing. I don't think he's necessarily slower than Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna is not a speed demon. Gio Reyna is very raw. And I know there are a ton of fanboys out there, and I get abused for ever critiquing an 18-year-old. But Gio Reyna sucks at getting out of a cover shadow. He is horrendous at it. And it's because of his age. He's 18. He hasn't learned that. Moukoko fell into that trap too, but he's 16. Jadon Sancho doesn't get out of a cover shadow because I don't think he gives a shit. I mean, he just stands there. And that's where I think where you're getting at, what Tazich said when you're talking about a standing formation. If you're not able to get out of a cover shadow, which I know is harder when there are 10 of them around you, you play into their hands and you make it very, very difficult. And you just don't have that creative playmaking central midfielder that can just play that unlocking pass. But that unlocking pass goes nowhere if there's no movement out of the cover shadow of the opposition.
It takes two to tango, people.
Yeah, and then playing it at speed. And again, you can only play at speed if you have someone to play it to. You know, and people complain about, Witzel did another sideways pass or another backwards pass. Where the fuck else is he going to go with the damn ball? He's got nowhere else to go. There's nobody moving ahead of him. And Witzel's number one job is don't lose possession. And he's exceptional at that. He really is. He's so hard to get away from the ball. So then naturally he's going to recycle play to somebody else. And that's just not enough. And it's not criticizing Axel Witsel at all. I mean, I don't think he's one that you can point at and go, oh, that's the problem at Dortmund right now. You know, and the set pieces, when you listen to what Hummels said after the match, and what Terzic said after the match, and what Michael Zorc said after the match, is that they had an exact man-marking scheme. Everyone had a specific player that was given to them to mark. Before the match even started, they said, you will be marking this person. And it broke down twice. Once we know exactly who's to blame, because Gio Reyna just let his guy go.
I think Lars Pollmann tweeted about that, asking why he is marking the striker in the first place, of all people.
Well, part of it is also physicality, of course. You know, I mean, when you're dealing with a striker who, let's just say this, is not prolific in front of goal, you can put... Gio Reyna's not a short guy. He's not a little guy. I mean, he's always surprises me when I look at him. He's like, oh, he's actually pretty tall. He should be able to do basic man marking. Basic stay with him somehow. Because obviously, the most dangerous headers of the ball are usually found in more central defensive positions. Be it in midfield or defense. And so that's where you're going to have some of your best headers placed up against them. If Gio Reyna just doesn't let his guy just go, then that already makes it so much harder for a striker that had a hard time scoring when it was really easy at times. And then obviously in the second goal, it's not 100% sure which guy screwed up. Indications are that it was Emre Can, who just didn't mark his man and instead decided to double mark someone else with Akanji. That's the initial report that I can't substantiate, but if we go by that, or just ignore that and say, okay, it's one of those two guys. I have a hard time believing it's Akanji because he marks people for a living. But it just, that's the basic rudimentary stuff that you cannot let happen. And that's when people like Zorc and Hummels get frustrated and say, maybe you just don't want to win enough.
Yeah, the funny thing is that Zorc already had his head in his hand before the goal went in for the second one. He looked
so old. He looked so old.
Very tired.
On the sideline. Very tired. I felt really bad because he's my guy. He's my favorite player of all time. He is BVB. And he just looked like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon going, I'm too old for this shit. I mean, that's what he looked like. And I felt really bad for him because this isn't like some laptop coach or some guy who played in the lower leagues and then got a business degree and became a sporting director. He won the freaking Champions League with Dortmund. This is a guy who did it all. He understands what you can and can't do, what is and isn't possible. And basic rudimentary assigned man marking is something you are taught in the Kreisliga, let alone the Bundesliga. And it is not that hard to remember, Union Berlin, I think they're good at corners.
Yeah, that guy that scored 4 goals already, maybe. Maybe
I should mark the guy I was told to mark. And the other thing that Hummels addressed in his post-match interview was, listen, sometimes those near-post corners that are flick-ons are extremely hard to defend, especially when the corner is executed very well. But because he admitted Köln kicked those like to almost perfection, to almost to a point where it's hard to defend. He said, but you have to defend the second post. You have to run with your man. You can't let the best header in the team just kind of stand around.
The 1-0 is where obviously where the ball was kicked to the first post, and the problem is, I think we should really complain about Gio Reyna and his absolutely dismal coverage there. you just said if this happens in the NFL, touchdown. Obviously.
Yeah, it's what we call broken coverage.
Yes, the ball was played for the near post into triple coverage. There was Marco Reus, there was Hummels, and there was Meunier, all fucking guarding Grisha fucking Prömel, one guy. And Reus runs to the ball, and then inexplicably, he just stops. Why did he stop? Marco, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just fucking jump and not just stand there and hope, well, maybe the guy behind me, he can get the ball. Yeah, well, the guy behind you got the ball was freaking Prömel, not Hummels or Meunier. It all looks very, very awkward. Especially if you miss the stop motion there while everyone around you is sort of moving and scrambling. So yeah, that's the most annoying part, that out of fucking 4 players that are standing there, they pick out the one Union guy, and I mean, it wasn't even that precise. He had to actually run into the space, and there were 3 to react, and no one really did. So that just annoys me to no end. And then obviously, Reyna is just sleepwalking behind Avoni, who's just, sort of holding on to him. But at the time, Avoni heads the ball through Bürki's legs, you can see Reyna's extended arm, and it's just a freaking Australia between the two.
Yeah, and you can make the argument, now, once the ball gets past Reus, you can't really blame Meunier or Hummels in the sense, because if they would have gotten to the ball, they would have had to have gone through Prömel. Odds are that's a penalty. But where you can make the assignment difference is swap the two. Meunier is a tall guy, and he's a defender by trade. He's not a wingback. He's more a defensive fullback. Maybe he should be ahead in that situation rather than behind in that situation. But that's obviously the way they decided to divvy it up as far as responsibility, because that's decided during practice and before a match. So I think it was a collective failure in so many regards. But again, you cannot let your man go. You can't. You just can't. And that's what happened. That's simply what happened. To me, the blame goes through the whole team. But the direct responsibility on both those goals was to whoever was supposed to mark the man. And we know who failed the first time. We have a pretty good guess who failed the second time.
Well, it was either Can or Kanji. I'm not entirely sure if I would assign Can to Friedrich. If it were me, I'd probably put a Kanji on him, but
probably.
I don't know for sure, and
we can't say it definitively.
It's just weird though, because after the news conference, I showed the pre-Union Berlin news conference, Terzic said how much he praised Can for his communication skills. Well, I'm sorry, where are the communication skills in that moment? Yeah, well, you can't say I have this guy, you have that guy again, just to remind everyone, because it was kind of hilarious, as soon as Friedrich scored it, everyone was just, with outstretched arms. Everyone was just puzzled on how this even happened. I mean, we've talked so much about just these detailed situations now, but I'm sorry, there's just so much going wrong for fucking basic play. It's just tiring, it's annoying, and I wish it could stop. Matthias, maybe this is a good time for you to roll up your WebMD dissertation and talk about fatigue and how it may actually affect the decision making that we have puked over for the last 5 to 10 to 15, 20, 30 minutes.
So obviously seeing that Dortmund conceded now 4 goals from corners, which was an old issue, but that had gone away. I think we can all agree with it. Everyone identified that as an issue. It got resolved. So why is it coming back up? And why are there issues in the build-up play and with passing through the build-up play that have really affected things? And so I'm like, well, we talk a lot about fatigue. How does fatigue actually play into this? Because Dortmund has a greater amount of match fatigue than some of the teams that have beaten them. And aside from Bayern, actually, all the teams that have beaten them in the Bundesliga are not playing internationally. So they are more fresh. So I decided to spend far too many hours looking at this and reading through sports medical journals, whether it's reviews, dissertations, studies, and so on, across multiple sports. A lot of it football related. Some were water polo, some basketball, some ice hockey, but it was team sports based because obviously that's the key thing here. And all of them found that fatigue had very little negative impact in the cognitive ability of an athlete to make the right choice as far as shooting, where to play the ball, where to identify a teammate. It didn't affect them. In fact, in some cases, it actually made it better. Where fatigue plays in is reaction time is shorter, and the decision-making when it comes to body positioning gets effective, which then also can lead to increased muscular injuries and knee injuries, which is obviously something that has been talked about with all these matches. I mean, Jürgen Klopp, I think, wrote some of the dissertations. I need to double check again. But then one of them linked and said that during their findings, they saw that stress was a bigger issue when it comes to decision making. And obviously you click on a link and another link, and then you read a bunch of papers. And stress is a significant cause for bad decision making when it comes to where to play the ball, which shot to take, which teammate to find. And it was interesting, some of these studies, they specifically pointed at football that ball possession oriented teams, like Dortmund, suffer more from stress and the negative impacts of stress on their decision making than a team that doesn't care about ball position, like, I don't know, Augsburg, Köln, Stuttgart, Union Berlin, so that when they're not doing something with the ball or when they don't have the ball, they panic, they make the wrong decisions, or they feel like, I got to make something happen now. And so in build-up play, they start making sloppy passes, which is all of the sudden something that's crept into Dortmund's build-up play, which was not there for the majority of this season and the majority of the second half of last season. And so that does explain all of this. So if you add to it poor reaction time, which you could maybe blame a little bit of that first goal, Gio Reyna, he just didn't react quick enough. So there's some fatigue maybe there. And then the panic and stress of we need to do something and we need to move the ball and we need to do something, and then you make the wrong decisions or no decisions, is obviously something that we're seeing at Dortmund at a heightened amount right now.
All right, I'm just going to come out and say this from rewatching the match a little bit. In the perfect word, Rafael Guerreiro will not enter the pitch other than as a substitute because he was just not, even though he got the assist and had a couple of key passes, he is not in the physical shape right now. And I'm very sad to say this, but even more so, Giovanni Reyna should have not been playing in this game because he was just awful. He was AWOL in many situations where Dortmund conceded. He was sort of involved, just escorting the guy to the corner flag is maybe one thing where maybe you were a bit smarter. And also, when you actually try to block the cross in the end, if you're not as fatigued as Reyna clearly and visibly was, Usually you can position yourself in a way that you don't block the ball for it to go out to a corner, but obviously it's a bit hard to say that now in hindsight, because all the player wanted was to get that corner. That was literally the only intent there. But obviously Reina also had a couple of good moments, like blocking the shot in the path to Moukoko in the 9th minute, which then was a pass right to Sancho, who then sort of fumbled it and hit it straight at the keeper and Matthias. I think that brings us quite swiftly to our next topic. Dortmund also, minus the fatigue, have a big form problem, and that comes down in the numbers of, for example, Jadon Sancho and Julian Brandt. Sancho at the same time last season, after 13 match days, had 5 goals and 7 assists. Right now in the Bundesliga, he has 0 goals and 3 assists. Julian Brandt, not that prolific. Julian Brandt had 1 goal and 1 assist, and right now is at 0 goals and 1 assist. So just goes to show that Julian Brandt needs to up his numbers regardlessly. And I actually looked at it. Brandt at Leverkusen had an average goal per 90 of 0.29 opposed to 0.1 right now, and his assists actually went up from 0.24 to 0.26. The assists per 90 and the goals and assists combined for Brandt at Leverkusen was 0.53 compared to Dortmund's 0.35. And there's a little asterisk here, which I marked for the heightened assists, is that his expected assists were actually higher at Leverkusen than they are at Dortmund. So it means that maybe the finishers he's passing the ball to are doing a little bit of a better job at finishing. But just to juxtapose Jadon Sancho of this season with the last season's Sancho, Matthias, how much of a difference does this make right now that he, for whatever reason, really does have the yips? Because the chance in the 9th minute where he has the ball pretty centrally in the box, and then sort of just scuffs it at the keeper. What are we making of this? And do you think he'll be coming back from that? Because you said pre-part that in hindsight it probably would have been better had Dortmund cashed in.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight being what it is, if Dortmund would have gotten 80 to 100 million, even spread over 2 seasons, they could have invested that into the squad in areas that we now know need investing. Obviously, that didn't happen, so we're dealing with what we're dealing with. The problem with Jadon Sancho for me has always been his attitude. His decision-making off the pitch has been questionable, to put it extraordinarily mildly. Immature, obviously, given his age. Granted, now I think that excuse is going away. We throw on top of that, then he does have, it seems, when you look at his body language, it seems as somebody who's given up, who's lost confidence, and who just doesn't care anymore, who's kind of checking out. And someone like that shouldn't be on the pitch. I mean, it's that simple. I would rather, and I am curious to see when Azad is fully fit, I think he should start ahead of Sancho. I mean, I'll be honest. I just think Sancho needs to be off the pitch. Reina needs to be off the pitch. I'd like to give Brandt another run starting, but in a 10, not on the wings. And then you have Hazard and Reus on the wings to kind of see how that movement goes. And obviously then after the very long winter break, eventually you'll have, I say that facetiously, of course, you'll have Holland back.
Yeah. No, it's going to be very interesting, because I do think that Dortmund do lack another winger, at least, just for the sake of rotation. But it's also interesting that you say that, because Jasic is attesting Sancho that he is in fact not giving up, and that he's fighting, and that the effort is there. It's just that the end product and the quote unquote magic of his isn't there, and that they're working very hard on sort of reigniting that. I'm reserving judgment for now, because to me at least it does look like Sancho is trying, but I think we have to frame it in a sort of way that even when he's trying in comparison to others relatively, other players do try harder when they feel like they want to achieve something. Just saying that. But sometimes it's also a bit unfair to say that he's not trying at all. I think that would take away a bit of credit that he does deserve. But yeah, it looks all a bit unfortunate right now. I'll say this at least. So yeah, but it's kind of crazy, because if you look at the chance in the 10th or 9th minute or whenever it was, that's just the frustrating part about this game in general, is that yes, Dortmund did lose 2-1, but they don't need to do too many things differently to win this one, right? So this is what's so annoying. Obviously, set piece defending, if it were a little better, sure, Moukoko hit the post and had a couple chances where he was very close to scoring, where he was just too short. So Matthias, I think if we want to get a tiny positive glimpse, even though maybe this game does not deserve it really, but is that Dortmund were not awfully far away from at least getting a point or all three. Just the old issues coming back to haunt them.
Yeah, I mean, even going back through all the matches Dortmund lost this season, the only ones were in the Bundesliga, the only ones where I would say that if you look at the entire match, Dortmund were really ineffectual, it was Augsburg and Stuttgart.
Yeah.
Even Bayern could have gotten a point out of that one. I think the Köln loss was entirely avoidable had they been more clinical. And the same can be said here against Union Berlin. There were definitely chances for Dortmund to score goals. I mean, look at Werder Bremen. There were more chances to score, some higher percentage chances goals than the 2 goals that were. Some of it was just down to Moukoko being a couple of inches too short. But the opportunities were there, and we can't forget against Union Berlin, Moukoko also hit the post. That being said, of course, Dortmund made some stupid mistakes in build-up that led to huge chances for Union Berlin that they didn't cash in on. So maybe if you put that all together, it's probably the right result. The Köln one, where that was entirely avoidable if Dortmund just would have focused just a little bit.
Yeah, but either way, it's not pretty now looking at the Bundesliga table. I mean, it was kind of annoying already to have this game on Friday, and then knowing that you could watch Bayern against Leverkusen and whatnot, and you can't really look forward to it anymore, because Dortmund can't really take an opportunity of it. So I guess it did help in the sense that Leipzig and Leverkusen dropped points. If you think more about the fight for the top 4, I don't really think we have to talk about the title race anymore, because this Borussia Dortmund are nowhere near that conversation right now, just in the standpoint of performance. Leverkusen, Leipzig, even Wolfsburg, to be honest, even Stuttgart, right now all a much more stable level. The only team that's also struggling is, of course, led by Dortmund savior Marco Rose, because Borussia Mönchengladbach also are not doing too well right now. Dortmund right now are 8 points already off the lead. Bayern Munich have 30 points and Dortmund 22, and Leverkusen and Leipzig are 6 points ahead. So that was not a great December, I would say, Matthias. So shall we move on to the cup match then, and leave the Bundesliga behind us for 2020?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so Braunschweig is the next opponent. They are in the second round of the cup because they've beat Hertha Berlin in an epic 5-4 cup thriller. And right now they are not in the greatest form. In 15th place in the Zweite Bundesliga, they have 3 wins, 3 draws, 7 losses, and the goal difference of -16. They have won only 1 out of the last 7 games. I think that was against St. Pauli, and recently on Saturday they got whooped 3-0 by Greuther Fürth. Usually going into this sort of game, you would say, yep, this should be an easy walk in the park for Dortmund. But right now, we know it's December against the Zweite Bundesliga team. I don't think anything will be an easy walk in the park. I can be wrong, and I don't know why I have a Boston accent right now. But Dortmund are without...
Smart pack.
Yeah. But Dortmund are without Haaland. They are without Schmelzer. Dahoud, Paslak, and Ranier are also out. Back in, still with a little question mark, is Torgan Hazard. He fully participated in today's, which is Monday's, training session and got on the bus that went off to Braunschweig. And of course, also on board is Steffen Tigges, who is the striker for BVB 2 and someone who I was hoping for that Dortmund at least would nominate for their squad, considering that their other options in the wake of Haaland weren't great, and especially when Moukoko wasn't 16 yet, at least to have him as a backup. But now the 22-year-old, 1 meter 93 tall striker, and I think that's 6.3 or something for our United States people with the weird imperial system. It's going to be interesting to see how he will behave if he gets a run out. He has been born in Osnabrück and joined Dortmund Dortmund's second team from VfL Osnabrück in 2019. He has scored 12 goals and 7 assists in 18 appearances this season. Dortmund's second team, which is obviously playing in the is it the Regionalliga West?
Yeah.
Yep. They're playing in pretty good season, and they're a good shout for a team to get promoted to the 3rd division. Some may remember Tigges from playing, was it last winter in Marbella? I don't think I remember him playing in this summer sort of preseason camp, which was weird. I think he was there during last year's winter camp, and I think he scored a couple of goals there too. But please don't nail me down for it, because I honestly just don't remember anymore. I think we are all just hoping that Dortmund somehow survive this and then just, can close this year out and we can all forget about it.
Yeah, but, historically, Dortmund's always done so well in the Cup at this time of year against lower league opposition. I mean, it's always difficult. It's evening games in December are always ick in the best of years, okay? And this year is obviously not the best of years. Braunschweig are playing at home. They've gotten 12 points in the Zweite Bundesliga this season, 10 of them at home. So obviously, they are better at home. Dortmund, but honestly, it really shouldn't matter. It's not like they're going to be fans in the stands. This is a game that Dortmund must win, and Braunschweig nobody expects to win. So again, you're talking about pressure and stress and decision making and give a crap. I would definitely put players out there that are not called Sancho, Reina, or Guerrero at this point. I would play Brandt. Just put him out there, see what happens. I doubt they're going to play Azad from the beginning. It's just the risk isn't worth it. You can always bring him in if you feel like you need to. I would prefer to see Paslak play if he's also out. No, he's not playing. He's also out. That's right. So you're probably going to have Meunier on one side, and I'd hope to see Schultz on the other one. I mean, it's kind of a match where it would be good to rotate a little bit, also to free people's heads a little bit.
It's interesting. Terzic has said that he will start, bringing fresh legs. Now, sometimes that could mean almost a brand new team, and sometimes it means like you change 2 players. So I'm really intrigued which side of the spectrum Terzic falls in when he announces something like that at a news conference. Just out of getting to know the guy, this is something I'm looking forward to. And obviously, the only real thing you can talk about going into this game is rotation.
Well, that and Dortmund will definitely need a playmaking option in the double pivot. Because I expect Braunschweig to put every player, dog, cat, house, bus, you name it, around their penalty area in this match, hope for counters, and I'm pretty sure they're going to focus a lot on corners. I've heard Dortmund may have an issue there. So, I think if Dortmund can avoid the stupid set piece, which obviously they are incapable of lately, then I think Dortmund will be fine. It's not going to be pretty. I don't think anybody expects it to be pretty at this time of year. I do think Dortmund are going to win, and we'll kind of move on. I wouldn't mind seeing Dahoud and Delaney.
Dahoud's also out, I'm sorry.
Oh, he's also out. Or he's not coming. That's right. I don't think he's injured. I just think they didn't nominate. You're not coming. Well, if that's the case, then Delaney and Brandt. But I mean, you need somebody more creative in a deeper position. Because you will have to play those passes. Because if you put the playmaker too far up the pitch,
let's just put in Brandt and Bellingham double pivot. Let's go. Just do it.
YOLO.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
granted, honestly, against this opponent, you probably could get away with it.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think what Dortmund right now need is more positivity, more creativity, and not go to even more defensive-minded players and whatnot. I think you need to get everyone who can play a pass in there and, try to bring as much creativity and Spielfreude, as we say, and Spielstärke, etc., onto the field and just, hope for the best. But I don't know. It's going to be a gritty game. I also don't know if Hummels will play. I don't know how far Zagadou is along after his long injury, because I would like to see more of him. So yeah, I mean, granted that Dortmund already play on January 3rd against Wolfsburg, you already have to sort of think about that game. So yeah, I would get the rotation machine out of the back. Granted, that's a bit tough without Haaland, Dahoud, Passlack, Ranier, etc. But it also might be nice to put Tigges in there, and that's something. I don't know why I didn't say it on recent episodes, but I was thinking about it often that, obviously he's a 4th division striker, but sometimes it would just help when Dortmund are chasing a game like this in Union that you have another target man up front, and he certainly can do that and just try to change the complexion of the game a little bit like that, because it's obviously tricky if none of your forward guys can win a header against any defender ever. So, obviously I don't watch Dortmund's second team often enough to assess that carefully enough to have an educated opinion about that, but should have been nice, and obviously that is his first inclusion in a Dortmund squad with the professionals, or the seniors rather. I'm looking forward to it. If it works out, maybe something good can come out of it, because Dortmund certainly do not have too many strikers. Let's put it this way. So yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No. That's brand new information.
Yeah, I know. Breaking news. Butzko is at it again. But yeah, Matthias, I think I don't have too many more things to say about Dortmund. So if you don't mind, let's do a little prediction. Because I think I'm very positive now, because after all the shit we just talked to, Dortmund will just turn around and blow them away. So they're gonna obviously win 4-0.
I was gonna go with a 3-0 result.
To good old bottom dwellers, Schalke 04, Matthias. Since you're the older one of us two, who's Huub Stevens and why is he still around?
He's one of the few people that actually gives a shit about Schalke. Obviously Huub Stevens brought Schalke their biggest success since 1958.
Sadly shadowed by Borussia Dortmund.
Yes. The same year Dortmund won the Champions League, Schalke won the UEFA Cup. So
sort of like a consolation trophy almost.
Yeah, it's nice. When Bayern won the UEFA Cup the season before Schalke, they were kind of like, fine, we'll take it, whatever. They're like, yeah, it's kind of the loser trophy. I think Beckenbauer said something similar to those lines.
Der Cup der Verlierer, the Losers Cup.
Yeah, exactly, the cup of the losers. So, very befitting.
Which Thomas Helmer recently, wasn't there like a draw for like the UEFA, was it the Europa League?
Yes.
I think he was there, just something like that, just repeated that line, which was received just greatly.
Oh yeah,
I had so much fun.
Of course. But Huub Stevens also, probably the Schalke coach that got the most out of the squad, that identified most with the working class roots of Gelsenkirchen. Of course, he was before that manager at Roda Kerkrade. Kerkrade is also a more mining industrial area of the Netherlands, if memory serves me correctly. And so, I mean, he really bled Schalke, and he felt like a Schalke guy. And I mean that actually in the most positive way possible.
So not at all.
and of course, got close to winning a title with them, and then didn't.
Like so many.
And Andy Möller. But he's come back, a few times over the years, and now he's been asked to come back because, to quote him, he said, Schalke is in trouble. Of course I'm going to show up. And Schalke being in trouble, and here's the problem. It almost doesn't matter who's on the sideline for Schalke because the players just don't care. They just don't care. I mean, you look at that, they got outplayed by Bielefeld. I mean, outplayed, and not like, ooh, just a little bit. No. Bielefeld, if they would have finished some of their counterattacks better, would have blown Schalke away. Blown them away. And I mean, there was like 6 minutes of added time, and Bielefeld players who had open counterattacks decided to run towards the corner flags.
Shout out to my man Stefan Schiplock.
Exactly. Sven Schiplock.
Sven, whatever.
Sven. Whatever. Stefan, Sven, same name.
Yeah.
But it's like, what are you doing? Go to the goal. You're going to score. Schalke, I mean, Fährmann's the best player they have, and he's kind of mediocre. So it's just because there you have players like Amin Harit. I'm sorry, Harit, aside from being whiny and a cheat, is just, I mean, he's talented, but he doesn't care. I mean, these are all players, if you look at it on there, like, can we just get this season over with so I can go somewhere else?
Yeah, it's like,
like
the Jets minus the winning part.
Yes. But I mean, once you've gotten there as a club in the Bundesliga, you're toast. You are done. You are gone because you have no money to bring people in. But again, I'm not even blaming the players or the coaches that have been there for the last, I mean, think about it. Schalke have 0 wins this season and 3 managers. Hey! But the issue was obviously from way at the top. Jochen Schneider talks a good game. It's his fault. Michael Reschke talked a good game. It was his fault. And obviously, the butcher, who's no longer the head of this disaster, it's his fault. It's not the fault of the coach. It's not even really the fault of the players, because I just think they're not good. It's the system got destroyed from the top down. I feel bad for Hoop Stevens because he actually cares, and I think he's the only one there that does, because the players don't. They just don't. And I see, and I've heard rumors, Zonega as coach. I've even heard Fink, which that's awesome. Please, and Doll.
And Wilmots. I've heard Wilmots.
Oh, Wilmot, please let it be one of them. Because Zonega is actually a good coach, but I don't think he's going to get anything out of these players because the players have checked out. And you don't even have a winter break to kind of recheck in. They have no money. No one's going to want to go to that shithole of a town. And so Schalke, get ready for Zweite Bundesliga because that's where you're going to end up.
Yeah, if you can financially afford that, if you can get the license for the Zweite Bundesliga.
I think there'd be a few people looking the other way to make sure Schalke don't lose their license.
Yeah, probably.
Because God knows they've done that with Kaiserslautern.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, but it's a big problem, and I think they're 230 million in debt or something like that. It's
oh man, that Russian oil money sure lasted.
Yeah, or
gas
or was
money.
It
It's not oil, it's gas.
I don't know, but
it's bad. It's very, very
crazy.
bad.
Just a crazy number. And like if you talk about collateral, what assets do they still have? Who do they even have to like sell? And if you get relegated, some contracts would just mean that these players can leave on a free transfer. That's just the sad part for them. That there's just not much money to make. And I listened to the Rasenfunk, and they had Philipp Seldorf on, who works for the Süddeutsche Zeitung, and he said that Christian Heidel, for example, gave a contract to Sebastian Rudi and paid him more money than Bayern did back then. just for one example why everything financially is falling apart at Schalke, because when they sold, was it Sané and Kehra and whatnot, when they got all that money and the cash in, they just burned it on players like Konoplyanka, etc. So this is really what killed Schalke, and apparently Christian Heidel is also partly to blame for the demise of their Knappenschmiede and the under 19, and usually that's sort of their safety net, that when things start to struggle, that they can at least bring a couple of talents up, but right now that's not really happening. And of course they lost Goretzka on a free transfer, they lost Alexander Nübel on a free transfer. Just so many players that you could have probably cashed in on. Schalke just don't, and I think this is really what broke their necks. Just financially, all this mismanagement is just accumulated over the last 4 or 5 years, and now I think they're going down, and they're really not coming back. I mean, it's not impossible, it's really not, but the way this is going and the way this is looking right now, it's gonna take a bit of a miracle. I mean, they're dead last. They haven't won a game. They came close against Augsburg. That game against Bielefeld wasn't pretty, but the 16th spot is now 6 points ahead of Schalke, meaning Arminia. Mainz only have also 6 points, so it's not impossible. But Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's impossible. They're getting relegated. I don't think they have a hope in hell.
All right.
None.
Okay.
None.
Yeah, well, I do agree. I'm just, theoretically, there's still a lot of games to play, etc., etc.
Well, yeah, but there were a lot of games to be played in 2020. How many did they win?
Yeah, exactly. When's the day that Schalke will be a whole year winless? It's crazy.
January
17th?
Something. Yeah, something like that. It's like less than a month away.
Yeah, just think about that, Matthias. We've been bitching here, sitting here bitching for an hour and whatnot, and then you look at Schalke and they haven't won the game in a freaking year. So I think that's always a good reminder of how poorly things could go, since Schalke are only 40 kilometers away from Dortmund, but it just feels like an entirely different dimension now. And yeah, it's going to be weird, but hopefully we'll have HSV back in the Bundesliga. So yeah, we'll see if we'll miss Schalke. Obviously, the Revier Derby is something that's going to go away. But Matthias, we'll talk about this again and again this next year, because Schalke,
looking forward to it.
Schalke is going down, and they are going down in flames. But Jesus Christ, do you think now it would actually help or make it even worse if fans were in the stadium?
Oh God, so much worse. So much. I think that they could be thankful nobody's in the stadium, because the abuse they'd be getting. I mean, they couldn't play worse than they are, so I guess it doesn't matter. But oof, yeah, no. I think that's the one thing, and I think the fans should be happy that they're not allowed to be there and pay money to watch that garbage.
It's true. All right, that's a good note to end it on, I think, Matthias. Please tell our listeners how to find you on the interwebs for more WebMD research.
You can find me on Twitter at Matthias Hug.
You can find me at Stefan Busko. You can find all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. If you want to subscribe to the show, please go to YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. And if you read our written content, go to theyellowwall.net. If you want to support us financially, please do so at patreon.com/theyellowwall, where you can also, for $10 a pop, sponsor an episode, get a shout out, or have something shouted out to someone you love or hate. I don't know. I don't judge. And with that, stay safe, stay healthy, and until next time, goodbye.